Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Terry Fletcher, which means that this is the WTF Week 7. What the football, what's going on around the league. Now, the Steelers had a bye, and so we got to sit back and watch what was going on. And basically, I don't know about you guys, but when other football's on and the Steelers are not playing, I tend to fold laundry, or I'll just work through it. Or we went to brunch with friends and watched all the different football that was on the Red Zone on TV. But actually, that gets you a chance to see what's going on around the league. So let's get started and see what's happening. So in New Orleans, quarterback Drew Brees, he completed 22 of 30 passes. Of course, he's always now amazing when everybody talks about it. But they were playing Baltimore. That's why I was interested in that game. And I'm just like, you have one job. Just beat Baltimore. You throw a ton of passes, which now he's at 501 touchdowns. He surpassed Peyton Manning. But you just please beat Baltimore. We need some AFC North losses so the Steelers can climb back in. Well, they did, but the WTF moment came when they were at the end of the game, and I'm thinking, okay, you guys are just not going to get this done here, are you? And it was a 23-23 game, and all Baltimore had to do was the kicker, of course, Justin Tucker, who doesn't miss. He's one of the best kickers ever. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe this. They're going to go into overtime. It's going to be 24-24. And even the media person who was calling the game said he is 222 out of 222 extra points. He's never missed an extra point in his entire career. And sure enough, he missed an extra point. We were jumping up and down. We couldn't believe it. And so, yes, Drew Brees, and the New Orleans Saints, they beat Baltimore 24-23 victory. And so that helped inch us closer to first place in the AFC North. So I have to say I was pretty happy with that game. That was just a surprise. I was like, oh my gosh, he actually missed it. He never misses. He's like automatic. So that was helpful. A couple of things. Now we're going to talk about Adam Thielen, the Minnesota game. This guy's on fire. I mean, talk about, a wide receiver that is just, he's just getting down the field. Now, the Vikings won 37-17 over the Jets. That's not really surprising. But he has had 100 receiving yards in each of Minnesota's first 7 games this season. He is just absolutely on fire. And, he is only the 5th player in history to record 7 games with at least 100 receiving yards. And so he's really somebody that he's a special player. And I see some of these stats with some of these players who are now kind of coming out and really making a name for themselves. And I keep thinking, Le'Veon Bell, who? Everybody's kind of wondering when he's going to come back. And now I'm just like, I'm actually annoyed. He came up with something today, and just a side note, if you look at Twitter, he made some things kind of a race issue of why they're not getting paid. And I just couldn't believe it. And so I'm not going to talk about that because that gets very controversial. But when you have, 75% of the league has African-American athletes and they're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars, it's hard to make that argument. So he needs to just move on, needs to just figure out what he wants to do. He's hurt his reputation. His stock has gone down. I just don't know what he's doing, which takes us to the Rams game. And the Rams are now 7-0, but they're doing it also on the back of Todd Gurley. Jared Goff is cool, but Todd Gurley in their last game, and it was against San Francisco, so they were playing a terrible team. But he scored 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing and 1 receiving, and again, that's what Bell does. He's supposed to be this, running back extraordinaire. Plus, he's out there, receiving, and that's where he's saying he should be paid as both. But you're not on the field, dude. You're not doing what Todd Gurley's doing. So it's just interesting because Todd Gurley now he has 14 touchdowns, 11 rushing and 3 receiving this season. And he is the third different player with at least 14 touchdowns in the team's first 7 games. So he is balling out. He is, one of the candidates, I would think, for MVP, an early sleeper. So I'm pretty impressed with that guy. I think it definitely is going to be possibly between him and maybe Patrick Mahomes, because that guy can't be touched. But it's just crazy right now when you look at what some of the other players are doing who are actually on the field, playing the game, not holding out on their team, especially with a year left on their contract, and not saying things behind the scenes. They're just out there playing. Now, another game that actually affected the AFC North, and this was a WTF moment. This was actually sad. I feel bad for the Browns. I do. I mean, they just can't seem to win a game in overtime. And we know they tied us. They tied the Steelers. But this is their third overtime of the year, and they played Tampa Bay. And it really looked like they were going to win. I mean, they just were kind of rolling over a little bit, the Buccaneers. And, Jameis Winston is just not doing that great. And so I thought for sure they were going to win. And even the Tampa Bay kicker was helping them out. He missed a 33-yard field goal for the win. He missed an extra point for the win. But guess what he did in overtime? He kicked a game-winning 59-yard field goal with 1:50 remaining in an overtime win over Cleveland to win the game. It was crazy. And so there's just so many overtime games, but that's another loss. So you heard me, Cleveland loss, Baltimore loss. But I mean, WTF moment on that one was he misses a chip shot 33-yard. He misses an extra point. And this kid comes back and kicks a 59-yard winner. Wow. So we've had at least one game that has gone into overtime each of the first 7 weeks of 2018 season. That's just crazy. That's actually NFL history. So that's just nuts. So I don't know about you, because I'm sure you're thinking, okay, well, with the Steelers off, I really had a chance to sleep in. So why would I want to wake up to watch London, England again, watch an England game that starts in California, where, that's what I'm based out of, on Sunday at 6:30. And you even look at the teams where the Chargers are kind of, and I'm not going to say San Diego, I promise. It's the LA Chargers now. They're kind of the sleeper. They're 5-2. They're kind of coming up and coming into their own. A couple of lucky wins there, and this was no different. This game was really odd. I did wake up. I actually didn't have to set an alarm. I was just awake for some reason. But I was also looking at my fantasy teams thinking, okay, I want to make sure everybody is healthy. But I was looking at it and I turned it on. And so the LA Chargers did win the game. They beat the Titans 2019 at the end of regulation. But here, if you didn't see the game, you have to go back and take a look at the last 30 seconds and read some of the Twitter feed on this, because this was just a WTF silly thing. I mean, the Titans were really all over the Chargers the whole game. Even Phillip Rivers at the end of the game, when he was being interviewed by one of the media personnel, he's like, yeah, they kept us off the field. He goes, I don't know what they were doing in the last 30 seconds, but we appreciate the win. And I was like, exactly. I mean, Mariota was just getting down the field. But here's what was weird. Last 30 seconds of the game, the Titans come back, and the Chargers, they're both down there, and it is 2019 Chargers. Well, because the Titans ended up scoring, and they needed just to go for an extra point again to go into overtime. Now, I don't know if the coach was jet lagged or what was going on, but the Titans coach decides he's going to go for 2. Well, they have not been successful at all with passing the ball. They were successful with running the ball the whole game. And so I'm thinking, okay, why are you doing that? Go for the and even the media on TV were saying, go for the tie and then go into overtime. But he decided to go for 2. Mariota got chased down, made an errant throw, and it wasn't happening. But there was a holding call on the Chargers that gave him another shot. So a holding call into the end zone. Again, instead of going for the field goal to tie the game, he again goes for 2 and on the 2-point conversion and missed it. I mean, WTF, coach, you see the signs. When you have an opportunity to go for 2 and it's not working, tie the game. Give your players a chance to at least come back in overtime and win. And he didn't do that. I just felt like he kind of hung his players out to dry. And, obviously if it worked, people would be like, oh, this is great. No, it was a bad decision, especially based on how the passing game went. during that game for his team. So it made no sense to anybody. And I don't know if it's because that coach is a former Patriot, but it just made no sense. So definitely WTF game at the end. We were all like, what is he doing? And then the Texans beat the Jags 20-7, but after 3 turnovers, and Blake Bortles was only 6 for 12, 61 yards passing, 30 yards rushing. By the third quarter, they benched him. Yes, he was benched. I think he just needs to play in London. I mean, that's his happy place. He wins there. I know that's his next game is going to be there. But, this kid he's just not a good quarterback. He got lucky last year. And, they sit there and go, oh, well, it was 43-40 against the Steelers in the divisional game. Yeah, the Steelers basically needed one more minute to win. But it was so many offensive running touchdowns or defensive plays because we played terrible at the beginning. But he has just shown that he is not a quarterback that can carry a team. But to bench somebody like that, it's just like WTF, and the Texans came back to win. So crazy, absolutely crazy game. Then one of the best games I got to watch on Sunday night. Now, this game I was waiting for all day, especially with the Steelers not playing. You want a game that really is going to mean something to you from the fact that you just want, the Bengals lost, the Baltimore lost, the Browns lost, and you just really needed the Bengals to lose as well. And I'm telling you, the Kansas City Chiefs just punched the Bengals in the mouth, 45-10. Their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, now has 22 touchdowns in 7 games. I truly believe the Chiefs have the best offense right now in the league. Now, we're in the Steelers, our defense is starting to figure it out. It looks like Chris Boswell's doing better as far as his kicks. And it looks like our offense it could give them a run for their money, but this team did us a favor, and that moved the Steelers into first place. So the 3-2-1 was just a slight edge of 571 or 583 over the 571 for the Bengals and for the Baltimore. So we are in first place. So that was just a great weekend, and all we had to do was be on a bye. So that was really helpful. The battle between the Redskins and Dallas, that's Cowboys and Indians. That's just your good old, Cowboys and Indians in this NFC battle. The last minute field goal in that game hit the uprights to get in. But I like the coach's comments after the fact and on Redskins. He's like, you know what? A win against the Cowboys is the best win ever. And I would have to agree. Not a Cowboys fan. I'm not a Jerry Jones fan. But I just think that was a great win for them. And I like Alex Smith. I just don't know why he doesn't get more respect as a quarterback. But that was a good win. But here's one of the WTF carryovers from week 6. So you remember the perfect hit on Antonio Brown where 2 defenders were taking AB down to the ground, and Burfict comes in with his elbow and arm and basically pops him in the head. Well, the league obviously, it was stupid they didn't get flagged, but the league obviously saw it and said, dude, $117,000. Now he's over $350,000 in fines for dirty hits. And Mike Brown, this is the WTF coaching moment of the week. And I'm just like, you know what? You're such an idiot. He publicly comes out and says, quote, "I'm sick of my players getting fines for penalties not called." Well, you know what? A lot of penalties aren't called and players are fined later. But dude, are you kidding me? I mean, WTF, seriously? Burfict should have been suspended with his history. And now being over $350,000 in fines, what is it going to take to get that guy out of the league? Now, I know I went on a bit of a rant last week. I won't do that this week, mainly because I've been speaking all week at my job. So my throat is a little sore on that, but you know how I feel about it. And at least he got fined, but it's just not working. Fines are not doing anything with him. So I just don't get that. One of the things that just came up recently, since we're a little late on getting this out to you, the backup quarterback for the Broncos, he ended up going to a Von Miller Halloween party and apparently got very drunk and decided to, and the police were called and there was an altercation, and apparently he went into somebody else's house down the street because he was so blasted. And the reports say that it was just a bad situation altogether. Well, guess what? He was cut today. So you need to behave. And he's only 22. I mean, that's younger than my daughter. So it's just interesting to see some of these young kids not realize it is a privilege to be in the National Football League. But that was one of the things that came out on the news today. I was like, wow, that's kind of sad for a young kid that he does that and he gets cut. But I have a feeling because he had a history of that in college that could be an interesting. There's something there where they basically like, yeah, we told you had one shot and that's it. And then, because I always like to complain about my fantasy football, not because I don't win. I actually do win quite a few times, but this year is just so close. And a lot of wins for a lot of people are coming on flukes. But this week was tough because 4 teams were on a bye, including my Steelers and our Steelers, I should say. And the 2 leagues that I'm in, one that I run, one I call my money league because it's a $100 buy-in, a $1,000 prize if you win. I had 9 players that are on a bye. Not all Steelers, but 9 players I had to try and go pick up, deal with waivers and all that. Last minute, I pick up the Broncos defense, and I'm thinking, they completely sucked last week. This is not going to be good, but it was the only one that was available. They scored me 43 points. So did I luck out or what? Because it's a good thing because my running back, Sony Michel, he was very injured. I don't know if you saw the game, but he injured his leg and they haven't come out and said he's doubtful right now for this weekend. I actually thought he tore something or broke something. It was not good, but he only scored me 4 points and he's usually good for 15 plus. But the one thing that I heard on the radio, and this just gave me a definite WTF pause, it was reported that a third of the players who started the season are now on IR. A third of the players. And so a lot of these players are coming off the practice squads, coming off the bench. But I mean, wow, that is, we're all scrambling for players on fantasy, but teams are scrambling for players. That it used to be, I think last year where some teams were scrambling for quarterbacks. Now there's just scrambling for defensive players, for running backs, for, any kind of athlete to just help out. So it's been quite the week. Without the Steelers, we definitely got to look around the league and see what was going on. And then this week, the Steelers host the Browns. We don't want any ties, only wins. And we do have some momentum coming in. Also being at the top of the AFC North is definitely going to help us. So I just can't wait to get back to football on Sunday. So we hope everybody makes it a great week. Thanks for tuning in. We have kind of our short version today of our WTF podcast. A couple of things just to make sure that you're out there. There are a couple other podcasts out there we'd love to have you kind of listen to with some of our crew. We have Joe Kuzma, who is in charge of all of our SCU. That's his baby. And he has something called the Discontent Podcast. So anybody that does anything with content marketing and promotion, really take a look at that. You can find that on iTunes and any other download. I have one for work called the Codecast Podcast and one that I do for fun called the Bun Life Podcast. Joe produces them all, so he's a great podcast producer. But take a look, listen in to see what we're doing. And we'd love to have you. So again, make it a great week, and let's hope that on Sunday we get another win under our belts. Thanks again for listening, and everybody make it a great day.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.